I was having y'all but Rico from Street Scores, and I'm not even gonna lie to you. The Commanders made a lot of moves today, but none of them are huge. But we of course gotta dive into everything that happened. We signed safety Terrell Burgess, we signed tight end Dillon, we cut cornerback Dantzler, which is really interesting because he was one of our very few free agency signings that we made. And you can argue that even though he wasn't one of the biggest, some fans were attached to him and thought he could end up stepping up and being a big part of the defense. Also, the Commanders have officially placed guard Andrew Norwell on the PUP list, so of course we got to dive into all of the positions that were affected in today's move: safety, tight end, guard, and cornerback. We got to dive into the players that were lost and gained, all of that. But again, I'm not even going to sit here and clickbait you and act like any of the moves that we made today were huge moves. But I do want to do a full dive into them because I wouldn't be Rico of Street Scores if I didn't. How much cap space will we get back for releasing Andrew Norwell before June 1st and after June 1st? We got to dive into literally everything. But before we do, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell next to the subscription button so you get notification immediately. And every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one, make sure you pull up whenever I'm able to do the Commanders Call and Show live stream. Man, I've been so super busy, man. It's been ridiculous. I've been busier than even I thought I would be. So just make sure you stay tuned for that. And also, again, I'm working on the film sessions for all of the draft class, all of the rookies that we brought in, and even some notable undrafted free agents. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Go become a channel member if you haven't yet. And without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
Shouts out to Nikki Javala. She had it first. She announced the Commanders made multiple moves. They signed safety Terrell Burgess and tight end Dillon. They cut Dantzler Sr. from the Vikings, the cornerback, and they placed guard Andrew Norwell in a reserve PUP list. I'm not exactly sure what took them so long to do this. I guess they were trying to give him as much time as possible to get back healthy so that they could release him, because the intention is to release Andrew Norwell. We're going to dive into that when we get to his part of the video. But starting with the safety, Terrell Burgess, just to go ahead and let you know, again, I'm not even trying to clickbait you here. These are not real notable big names, but it is interesting when you're talking about the positions that we're bringing players in for. If you notice, we cut a corner and put a guard on the PUP list and then brought in a tight end and a safety. We didn't bring in the exact same positions that we lost. So that was interesting in itself. So there must be something to Terrell Burgess and Dillon. But just starting with Terrell Burgess again, he played for the Rams for 2 years, started in 2020. His first year, he played in 7 games, started in none. In 2021, he played in all 16, but started only in 2 of them. And then 2022, he played in 7 games for the Rams, started in 1, and then played in 1 game for the Giants. And so far throughout his entire career, he has 29 tackles, 18 solo, 11 assisted. And that's basically it for all of his statistics. So again, this is not a real notable move, but of course we're going to take a look at the safety position that we currently have on roster, and that's where things get a little interesting. Now, first of all, this Terrell Burgess guy, even though he's a free agent signing, and you assume if we're bringing in a free agent, they got to be better than somebody we already have on roster, and maybe you could argue he's better than some of the undrafted free agents we brought in, maybe like a Kendall Smith or an Xavier Henderson. But I wouldn't put him over Quan Martin at all. You're obviously not putting him over Cameron Curl and Derek Forrest. You're not putting him over Percy Butler or Jeremy Reeves. So if this guy even has the slightest chance of making the roster, he at the very least has to be better than undrafted free agents Kendall Smith and Xavier Henderson. And I'm not even exactly sure about that. So I mean, it's a really interesting move. It's looking like a camp body type of guy that just want to bring in an additional safety. Again, the weird part is that we released a corner and placed a guard on the PUP list, and then we brought in, instead of bringing in another corner and another guard, we brought in a safety and a tight end. So maybe they see something in this guy that I don't exactly see yet. But again, this safety group is really deep. It's a great problem to have, though. But as of right now, if you're including Quan Martin with the safeties, because I think he's going to basically start a slot corner. So if anything, he's more of a cornerback than a safety, in my opinion. But again, you have Quan Martin, Cameron Curl, Derek Forrest, Percy Butler, and Jeremy Reeves. That's 5 right there. And that's if all 5 of those guys even make the 53-man roster, which I'm pretty sure they will, because Jeremy Reeves is such a dominant special teams player, all pro, not only Pro Bowl, but all pro. So we're going to make roster space for those 5. And I just highly doubt that Kendall Smith, Xavier Henderson, or recently signed Terrell Burgess as of today are going to make enough of a push to take one of those guys' spots. I'm hearing great things from Percy Butler and Derek Forrest as young guys improving. Of course, Cameron Curl is Cameron Curl. And then Jeremy Reeves again with this impact on special teams. And then Quan Martin, first of all, 2nd round pick, but also I see him more of as a slot corner anyway. So, hey man, I'm not really seeing the opportunity for this guy to actually end up making the final 53-man roster. I don't really see it by the end of this offseason, but who knows, man? Maybe he goes out there and balls out. Maybe they found a diamond in the rough. Now, the tight end that we signed, Brandon Dillon. And so far, he played in 1 game for the Minnesota Vikings in 2019, played in 3 games in 2020, and then played in 1 game in 2021. Didn't play in any in 2022. I'm not even exactly sure what happened there. I guess he just wasn't on any team. Either way, he played in 5 games over the course of 3 years, started in none, and has 1 target and 1 reception for 6 yards so far, according to Pro Football Reference. And I know we lost my dog, Armani Rogers, sadly. And so we do need to figure out who's going to step up at the tight end position. I mean, again, just looking at the whole position from top to bottom, I mean, you have Logan Thomas, who comes with somewhat of a floor if he ends up looking like his 2021 self, like Rivera and company felt like they were seeing towards the end of the 2022 season. If he's that, then that's at least a decent tight end. I guess you can argue top 10, top 15 tight end there if he's that. And then you also have John Bates, who comes with some blocking but not much receiving potential. Then you have Cole Turner, who should be a red zone threat, and it seems like he's doing the same thing he did last year. When it comes to the off-season practices and things like that, he's looking like a Hall of Famer, but we got to see if it translates into games. And then, again, Cole Turner is more of a red zone threat than a guy that could just dominate from the 20-yard line to the 20-yard line like I expected Armani Rogers to be, which is going to be like a mismatch type of problem there where, I mean, you put him on anybody. He's too big for the corners and safeties. He's too fast for the linebackers. I really believed in Armani Rogers and really was thinking that he could be the next guy. I guess we'll have to wait till 2024 to see. Either way, though, Cole Turner, even though he provides a lot of red zone potential, I don't really see him being the type of guy that Armani Rogers was. Like, I already did a whole video breakdown on Armani Rogers and why I feel like Antonio Gibson, if anything, is going to get a lot of the targets and a lot of the play calls that Armani Rogers was originally going to get. And then you also have Curtis Hodges, who's a 6'8" mismatch as far as just throw it up there, and I bet he's gonna be the one that comes down with it as long as the quarterback throws it to where only Curtis Hodges can get it. I mean, 6'1", 5'10" corners against a 6'8" tight end, and then he started to show that he could become a slightly better blocker over time. Now, the Commanders are clearly high on him because he had the slightest boo-boo, the slightest little scratch, and we put that man on IR for the season. They were like, hey, man, just pretend you're more hurt than you are because we don't want to lose you to another team. We don't want to have to release you because we need this additional roster spot for the 53-man roster. We don't have a spot to really keep you on right now while you're learning to develop, so we're just going to act like your injury's worse, put you on IR so that you can come back next year and ball out for us. So Curtis Hodges has some potential there as well, but again, nobody's Armani Rogers. But at the same time, before we signed Brandon Dillon, we only had 4 tight ends on roster. Now we have 5 once again, and you can definitely argue coming into the draft, even with Armani Rogers healthy, we should have taken a tight end in the draft, and then we didn't, and then Armani Rogers got hurt. But Rivera said there's no need to panic. He's still really confident in this tight end room even after Armani Rogers got hurt. I don't agree, but it is what it is. But again, I'm saying all of that to say that don't hold your breath on Brandon Dillon's being that guy that comes in and makes a huge impact on the tight end position. He's more of a camp body. He has even less experience than Terrell Burgess, who we just talked about a little earlier. And then going on to the cornerback that was released, you have Minnesota Vikings Cam Dantzler, and it's crazy because he didn't even make it to camp. And when we signed him as a free agent, I was like, okay, maybe he could be like the direct backup to a Benjamin St-Juste, maybe even makes a 53-man roster, but more than likely goes on the practice squad because him and Benjamin St-Juste are the only guys built like that in our entire secondary, our entire cornerback room. Just 6'3", really long, with good change of direction skills. So if Benjamin St-Juste gets hurt, and he has yet to play a full season for us yet, Cam Dantzler should have been that next guy up. But apparently they saw enough of him just this quickly with only a few practices of voluntary OTAs, they've already decided they can move on from him. And again, I know I keep saying it, but it's weird that we released a corner and then signed a safety. So I guess they don't want another 6'3", really long arm cornerback on the roster, because again, Benjamin St-Juste now with Cam Dantzler gone is the only guy like that. But he was claimed off waivers and throughout free agency, so it's not like we just signed this big free agent name that everybody was fighting for. He was technically claimed off waivers, and so I'm not surprised that he didn't make the roster, but I thought he would at least get an opportunity in training camp to show what he could do. But I mean, I'm pretty sure the Commanders are really confident in our cornerback depth. We do have a lot of corners, like if you're talking like 4 through 6 on the depth chart, that are pretty solid, where Cam Dantzler, you can lose them and you don't really feel it. I mean, I like the potential of Cam Dantzler. I was excited about seeing what he could do in training camp, especially practicing against Terry McLaurin, De'Ami Brown, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, and all of those guys over and over again. But we'll never really get to see it. But cornerback-wise, with him gone, I mean, of course, your starters are Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste, I guess Kendall Fuller, and Quan Martin. Like, those are your 4 guys at the top of the depth chart. And then technically Cam Dantzler was right behind them. I would have put him above Christian Holmes, DeMarcus Fields, Troy Apke, Tariq Castro-Fields, DJ Sturgis, and Nick Whiteside. Not saying that he's better than all of those guys. I mean, apparently the fact that he got cut shows that he isn't. But if we were talking about a depth chart, I would have put Cam Dantzler directly behind Benjamin St-Juste, Emmanuel Forbes, and Kendall Fuller as far as outside corners go. Slot corner is different. You got Quan Martin, Danny Johnson, Rashad Wild Goose. That's his own thing right there. But if we're talking about ceiling and potential, Tariq Castro-Fields is a guy I'm looking at after, again, Kendall Fuller, Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste, who's a guy that could really make some noise and earn some real snaps throughout the regular season. Tariq Castro-Fields is a crazy high ceiling. He's crazy fast, crazy quick, and as he starts to understand the game better, I think he's going to be a lightning in a bottle. I think he's going to be a gem found out of nowhere for us. People are going to be like, where did this guy even come from? Why is he this? And he didn't necessarily look that great on the field last year at the times that he did play, but I believe in his potential. Tariq Castro-Fields is definitely one of those names to watch out for. But again, it's just really interesting that Cam Dantzler was technically like second on the depth chart. If you're looking at outside corners, you have Emmanuel Forbes and Benjamin St-Juste on one side that some people see it as, and Kendall Fuller on the other. Cam Dantzler was directly behind Kendall Fuller, even though I see it more as Emmanuel Forbes on one side, Benjamin St-Juste on the other, and then you have Kendall Fuller behind one of those guys. But either way, Cam Dantzler was like the 4th corner, ignoring slot corner. He's the 4th outside corner, and the fact that he got cut before all of these undrafted free agents, before even Troy Apke. Of course, Troy Apke is here for special teams, but you get my point. And then Christian Holmes looked terrible last year, but we're going to give him some time to see what he could do. Hopefully this preseason, this time around, he looks better. And then slot corner wise, again, Quan Martin, Danny Johnson, Rashad Wild Goose are kind of like a different story. They're technically corners, but they're not the same type of corner as Cam Dantzler, Emmanuel Forbes, and Benjamin St-Juste. I prefer those guys on the outside. I prefer Quan Martin and those guys on the inside. So it's separate. That's why I don't really want to talk about them too much as far as this goes. But yeah, man, it's really interesting that we cut technically the 4th cornerback. If we're looking at a depth chart with Emmanuel Forbes, Benjamin St-Juste, and Kendall Fuller as the top 3, Cam Dantzler was probably behind them, and he just got cut before we even made it to mandatory minicamps. Really interesting. And then guard-wise, the Commanders placed veteran guard Andrew Norwell, who started 16 games last season on the PUP list, which is really interesting because Ron Rivera said it with so much confidence that the competition is between Sadiq Charles and Chris Paul before we headed into the draft. And even after the draft, we just brought in a whole bunch of centers in free agency. We brought in some centers. I mean, Andrew Wiley, I guess you can kind of consider him a guard, but he's clearly starting at right tackle for us right now. So the competition is still between Chris Paul and Sadiq Charles. And so far through voluntary OTAs, it's been Sadiq Charles getting the starting left guard snaps, but I think Chris Paul will eventually win that if it's between those two. But it's really interesting that Andrew Norwell, that everybody hates so much, was one of our very few consistent starters last year. One of the very few people on this entire team, offense and defense, that was able to start the entire season. Basically, he only missed 1 game. Like, I don't hate Andrew Norwell as much as everybody else does. Now, I did want to upgrade over him. I wanted to go guard 2nd or 3rd round in this draft to get an immediate upgrade. But I'm just not like, oh yeah, Andrew Norwell is just extremely expendable. Now, I am a big fan of Chris Paul, but I got to see him start for more than just 1 game in his NFL career. Even though he looked great against the Cowboys that last game of the season, I got to see it over a longer span of time, maybe at least throughout in training camp and preseason, for me to be confident in him starting at left guard and protecting our right now franchise quarterback Sam Howell. And then even on top of that, he's not even starting left guard right now. As of right now, Sadiq Charles. And nobody at this point has confidence as Deke Charles starting at left guard for us right now. Even just health-wise, ignoring talent and production, just health-wise, can we depend on him to play an entire season? I wouldn't put my life savings on it. So the guard position is really interesting right now, and for us to be doing this with guys when we need guard help right now, and if anything, we're just making it a bigger weakness by getting rid of a guy like Andrew Norwell. It's really interesting, but at the same time, though, he is hurt. That's why we put him on the PUP list, but we've been saying for months now that we're going to release him as soon as he's healthy. Instead of waiting for him to get healthy and just letting him remain on the 90-man roster, taking up a roster spot, they're just like, we'll just go ahead and put him on the PUP list. When he gets healthy, we'll finally release him off of that PUP list. Now, if it happens before June 1st, we will save $2.28 million. If it happens after June 1st, we'll save $4.38 million. And again, that's not enough with as big of a need as the guard position is. I think at the end of the day, Andrew Norwell, if he were healthy, it would be wise to at least keep him as depth in case somebody gets hurt. But as of right now, with him not healthy, I guess it just makes sense that we're going to put him on a PUP list and release him as soon as we can. But we better figure out guard. Hopefully some other team let somebody go that can come in and start for us, like a veteran, because as of right now, I love Chris Paul and his potential, but like I already said, I'm not confident in him, and I'm definitely not even confident in Deke Charles just staying healthy, just that alone. So this guard position, this left guard position is really interesting. Now, maybe if somebody can step up at tackle, that would make things really interesting, because then Andrew Wiley can move the left guard and start a left guard for you. So that's really interesting right there. But as of right now, man, we have a big hole in left guard. You could argue it's the biggest weakness on our team right now, the biggest question mark at the very least. We do not know who our real starting left guard is, and we're already in the middle of OTAs right now. We still got mandatory mini camps. I know we got all of that type of stuff to go, training camp. But, you know, a lot of other positions that we're worried about, like tight end and stuff, we at the very least know who our starters are. We know Logan Thomas, when in doubt, is our #1 tight end. John Bates is a good blocker. Cole Turner, red zone threat, who's learning how to block better. Same thing with Curtis Hodges. With left guard, I mean, it's a head scratcher right now. So really interesting move and decision-making process with this whole Andrew Norwell situation. Again, I'm not saying he's a good guard, but hey, man, we at least need bodies right now, because as of right now, it's just Deke Charles and Chris Paul. Because again, Nick Gates, like I've already explained, he's kind of like Wes Schweitzer, but Wes Schweitzer was more of a guard. Nick Gates is more of a center. Back up, just basically interior and offensive lineman who can play either one, but you prefer Nick Gates as center. As of right now, he's our starting center anyway. And so Ricky Stromberg is ready to step up and start at center. Nick Gates is our starting center. So you can't start at left guard for you just yet until Ricky Stromberg is ready. So again, left guard is a huge mystery right now. Very interesting. Now, maybe they could see Keaton Sutherland and Nolan Laufenberg stepping up big time and taking a big leap forward to potentially start a left guard, but I doubt it. It's just literally Chris Paul and Deke Charles, like Ron Rivera's been saying even before the draft happened. Again, they see Braden Daniels as a potential high ceiling tackle, Alex Akingbulu, the undrafted free agent Mason Brooks, Cornelius Lucas, Trent Scott, Aaron Montero, Jared Jones-Smith, the high profile XFL tackle. I mean, all of these guys are tackles, man, and Andrew Wiley, who is one of the guard candidates technically, is our starting right tackle right now. So you don't even want to move him to guard. So right now, the guard position is really fishy, but we'll see how that goes, man. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please leave a like in this video if you liked it, if you learned anything. As always, man, I appreciate all the support, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Name you see scrolling on the screen right now. Let me know how you feel about all of these moves that we made. Again, I'm not even gonna sit here and lie to you and try to clickbait you as if we just signed the next starter, the next Hall of Famer. These are all really interesting moves, though, and when you really break down the depth of this team, it gets really interesting. And so how you feel about the left guard position, how you feel about the cornerback position, and then how you feel about the safety and the tight ends that we brought in today. All of that. Let me know in the comment section how you feel. I'm going to be in there to read and try to reply to as many as possible. Without further ado, I'm going to catch y'all later. I'm out.